Okay, and with that, we're live. Hello, everyone. My name's Brian. I'm with DoraHacks. I'll be the host of the second Saga Multiverse workshop. I would like to say thanks to the entire Saga team for joining, as well as the audience for joining as well. This is a very exciting workshop. It will be hosted by Bogdan, who is a co-founder of Saga and the VP of engineering. The title of the workshop is Cassiopeia Deep Dive, and it will be a deep dive training on Saga Cassiopeia testnet led by Bogdan. In this workshop, you will learn fundamentals on how to set up and launch your own Saga Chainlets. So I'd like to thank everyone once again for joining. Very interested to learn more. And just before diving into the technical side of this workshop, I'd like to turn it over to the Saga team and Rex, who has some updates about the hackathon in general and some additional agenda items he'd like to mention before turning it over to Bogdan. Rex, take it away.
Thank you. I'm actually live from Pocket Gamer Connect in Seattle. So for those of you who weren't on our first call, we're Saga. We provide infrastructure and tools to accelerate, make it easy to stand up and launch your own sovereign blockchain. And what Bogdan's going to be talking about today is our Cassiopeia platform, which is our current iteration of the Saga platform in the market. And we're super excited about this. We've had a lot of demand and a lot of folks coming in and testing out Cassiopeia. So we wanted to take a moment to do a deeper dive workshop here for folks that are participating in our hackathon, which is now live and running throughout June, and it will end on June 20th. We have partner workshops that we've got on our schedule, including Spheron Network, Scenario, who do tools for generative AI gaming. We've got Link, who was recently joined and added to the schedule on June 7th. And then we also have some other partners that will be joining us. So having said that, a recap of the prizes. We have the grand prize is the Saga is the best multiverse collaboration. If you're not familiar with that, what that is, that means we're looking for teams to work together and do cross IP original work. So we've had a number of folks from our Saga Innovator program that have done collaborations where one team takes their NFTs or their artwork into a game. So we're looking for that. And to facilitate that $20,000 prize, we'll be hosting a matchmaking session this Friday. And if you don't have that on your schedule, either ping us or double check your schedule or look on the DoraHacks Saga Multiverse Hackathon website. And make sure to come to that because we've had several dozen people express interest in being matched with other teams as part of this hackathon. So, and we might take some time at the end of this call to facilitate further matchmaking. We've got prizes for best generative AI trailer. So if you want to generate a movie trailer to show us what your multiverse looks like, that can be shared on Twitter. We're encouraging people to do that. We've got prizes for that. We've got prizes for best port of a Web 2 game to Web 3. We've got a prize for best Web 3 game, original Web 3 game. And we've got prizes for sample code, plugins, and platform extensions on Saga also. So having said that, if you haven't yet filled in the form, with this iteration of Cassiopeia, we're asking developers to go to the Saga DoraHacks landing page, register using that landing page, fill in the details, tell us about your project, and then we can grant you access to Cassiopeia. You're not going to be able to get it unless you fill in that form first. So our product manager, James, will help you out there. So having said that, once again, thanks to everybody who's taken the time to join us. And I think unless Rebecca or anybody else has anything to add, we can bring Bogdan up and have him run a little bit of a workshop. Final point, we've released a public Saga Multiverse Hackathon calendar. We've got a link, and Drew or somebody else or Tina, if you can share that link on socials. If you want to join our open office hours, our product manager, James, and myself will be helping coach you through any technical hurdles you might have. These are going to occur several times per week between now and the end of the hackathon. So subscribe to that Google Calendar link, and you'll be added to the Friday matching call and the open office hours and the workshops. So we highly recommend doing that, or just going to the DoraHacks landing page for Saga and adding those to your calendar there. So having said that, I guess we'll bring up Bogdan if you're ready. to do a Cassiopeia workshop here.
Thanks, Rex, and hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. I'm going to start by sharing my screen here in just a bit so that we can go over together over the official Saga Cassiopeia documentation. As developers, that's where we usually start. So let me share that and let me know if you can see my screen. All right, I suspect that screen share is working. I don't see any problem on my end.
Yeah, it works. I can see it.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. All right. So Cassiopeia. All right. So some of you have had a chance to go through these docs before. For some of you, this is new. Today, we're going to do a deeper dive into Cassiopeia, and some of the content that we're going to go over today might be, for some of you, a repeat. For some of you, it's going to be new. We're going to have some new content that we're going to discuss today, and we're going to also go over a bit of a refresher for what was presented by my colleagues in the prior session we had about our Cassiopeia CLI that was presented last time. So let's just jump right in. Before I do that, if there are any questions from the audience throughout this workshop, I would like to make this a lot more engaging or interactive. So feel free to jump in and ask questions throughout. Feel free to interrupt me if you want. We are going to have, at the end of this, a Q&A session. So for more in-depth conversations or more in-depth answers, I would say, we can keep those questions for the end. But if you have any quick questions that you want to ask throughout, or you want me to repeat something that you might not have heard correctly throughout the presentation, please feel free to interrupt me either in chat or voice, and I will be able to maybe go over it again. So with that, let's just get started. Like I said, we're going to start with the Cassiopeia CLI docs. In the main documentation site at docs.saga.xyz, the first thing that you're going to see is the Cassiopeia overview. And that's what we're going to be using as a structure for today's workshop. So first and foremost, we're going to go over over what is Cassiopeia. As you heard before, Cassiopeia is Saga's first public testnet. It's what you're going to be using to launch your own blockchains, your own chains that you're going to be using to build your applications, your projects during this hackathon. Cassiopeia comes with a few different components, and we're going to go over them in a sequence here. The first and foremost, Saga Platform Chain is a true chain to launch chains. It's a decentralized blockchain on its own that is tasked to coordinate the orchestration and settlements among our decentralized set of validators that are running our testnet. It's a Cosmos SDK-based chain, and it's run by all of the validators that are currently supporting the Saga Cassiopeia testnet. The second most important component is the Saga controller. It is a decentralized service focused on platform state management. So it's a service that runs inside each validator and orchestrates the deployment and state management of our chains. It also orchestrates the automatic deployment of RPC infrastructure, so RPC endpoints that you're going to be using in your Web3 applications or with your MetaMask wallets to connect and transfer funds. And also it's tasked to provision blockchain explorers, your dedicated blockchain explorer that comes with every single chain that is spun up on top of Saga Cassiopeia or Saga platform. Inside each chain, we run our own Saga EVM. It's our own EVM execution environment coming with its own data availability layer that powers each individual chainlet or chain that is deployed on top of our platform. And like I said previously, each individual blockchain spun up on Saga platform comes with its own Saga Explorer. It is a dedicated blockchain explorer based on Block Scout that gets deployed automatically for each individual chain that runs on top of Saga. And last but not least, something that we're going to be using as part of this workshop, the Saga CLI, which is it's a command line CLI or command line interface client that allows the users to interact with all of the features that are currently available in our testnet. It also acts as a wallet for your Saga testnet tokens and provides a set of features that we're going to be very soon going over in our workshop. Features like chainlet management, account management, key management, and so on. But before going to the Saga CLI, another thing I wanted to do a quick overview is how is the high-level architecture looking like for our current testnet. This is not something that is going to be directly used, let's say, in your current projects you're going to be working during this hackathon on, but I think it's something that is pretty interesting, and as developers you might be interested to know how it looks at least at a high level. So we have included a quick. I'm sorry.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
We are getting questions in from the chat. So what's a good way to get those to you? Should I just read them out?
Oh, I see them right now. I'm sorry. This is something.
No, because you're sharing your screen, so it's hard.
Yeah, I'm looking into different screens here.
No. Maybe every like 10 minutes or so, I can go into the chat and just let you know what the questions are. So
yeah, let's go ahead.
Now,
Let's take them in order.
Yeah. Right now, so we have Orion wondering what is Cassio CLI distinct from Saga CLI? So that's question number one. And then Sandeep Kumar is wondering, what is the relation between parent and child chain? And Dragos is wondering, are chainlets borrowing security for the same set of validators?
Those are very good questions. Very good questions. Okay, I'm going to try to get them in, to answer them in order here. So the first one is, what's the difference between Cassiopeia CLI and Saga CLI? If the Cassiopeia CLI is distinct in some way from Saga CLI. And I think that is, the answer to that is no. It's basically the same thing. Saga CLI, Cassiopeia CLI. Saga CLI is right now Cassiopeia CLI. In the next iteration after Cassiopeia is going to be the CLI that we're going to be using for the next release. So you can get used to the name Saga CLI. It's going to be one of the ways, not the only one, but one of the ways to interact with the Saga platform moving forward. So today, Saga CLI interacts with Cassiopeia, which is the name for our testnet, the name for our current release. The next release will come with a new version of the Saga CLI that will provide a richer set of features. I hope that answers that question. That's from Kai. So thank you for that question, Kai. The next question is from Kumar. What's the relationship between parent and child chain? This is a question that might also be somehow related to what Dragos is asking, which is, are chainlets borrowing security from the same set of validators? Kind of. So let me answer Kumar's question first. The Saga platform chain, which is the first component we talked about here, it's a standalone blockchain, and it's used by our validators to orchestrate, to coordinate and orchestrate the deployment of new chains. So the relationship here is between the Saga platform chain and every other, you can call it child chain, but there is not a parent-child relationship, by the way, between these two chains. I would say they're coordinated by the Saga platform chain, but there isn't a a root and the leaf, let's say, relationship between the Saga platform chain and every single chainlet or EVM chain launched on top of the Saga platform, if that makes sense. So the Saga platform chain acts as a coordination medium, as a messaging bus, as a decentralized database. If you want to, all of these are incomplete ways to define the Saga platform chain, but it gives you an idea that for what Saga platform chain actually is used for. It's a decentralized way of coordination to launch new chains. So that is the relationship. Saga platform chain is used for coordination to launch new chains. Every single chain that is being launched additionally on top of the Saga platform, it's its own standalone EVM chain. And I hope that answers your question, Kumar. Okay. And then the last one, Dragos. Are chainlets borrowing security from the same set of validators? That is, so Dragos, you're asking about the concept of cross-chain validation or shared security, which is something that has been pioneered by the Cosmos ecosystem. And it is something that our team is actually currently actively working on. So in the current testnet, no, there is no sharing of security between the main chain, the Saga platform chain, and each chain, additional chain, EVM chain that is running inside our testnet. That will change with our next release. So the question is, do we have shared security? The answer is, for Cassiopeia, we do not. Each individual chain, additional chain or chainlet, has its own security, and it's not leveraging IBC or shared security or cross-chain validation across the Saga platform chain and each individual chainlet, if that makes sense. I hope that explains your question. Okay, next one. One more question from Dragos. Being built on top of Cosmos SDK and having an EVM inside them, is it correct to assume that chainlets can exchange messages between? That is correct. Yes. Yes. So yeah, let me repeat the whole question again. Is it correct to assume that chainlets can exchange messages between them via IBC without orchestration from the Saga mother chain or Saga platform chain? That is correct. The technology does allow IBC channels to be formed between different chainlets or chains inside the Saga platform, or with chains that are outside of our Saga ecosystem. So you can think about other chains in the Cosmos ecosystem or outside of the Cosmos ecosystem that are implementing the IBC protocol. If you can think about Osmosis or Juno or other chains outside of Saga platform chain. So that's a very good question as well. All right, thanks, Dragos, and thanks everyone for the questions. Let's move forward. So we were talking about the high-level architecture of how Saga Cassiopeia testnet looks like today. I'm going to highlight a few components that we have here in the high-level architecture that we've included in our Saga CLI docs. As you can see on my screen, I'm going to zoom in a bit so that it's more visible to everyone and more obvious what components I'm talking about. So in green, we have components that are coming from the EVM tooling ecosystem. So you can think about wallets, Web3 application clients, dApps, Explorer UIs, like, for example, Block Scout, and so on. Those are open source tools that we have integrated with our Saga Cassiopeia release, and that are available for you to use from the get-go. Everything that is in dark gray are components that are being built by Saga team, the Saga engineering. And most of them we already covered earlier when we talked about what Cassiopeia comes with. but we can highlight them here again. SPC stands for Saga Platform Chain. Some of you call this the mother chain. It's our platform chain, our coordination medium. Each light gray box, it's actually a whole validator. And inside each validator, we have one node that runs the Saga platform chain. We have a decentralized stateless controller. And we have a cluster of validators that are running each individual blockchain. Each individual blockchain comes with its own dedicated explorer. So as you can see right now in the current release of Cassiopeia, we have each individual validator running a copy of the Saga platform chain, and it runs a validator for each individual chain that runs on top of the platform. We have a handful of validators that are deployed right now in separate geographic locations, completely independent from each other, running in continental United States, in Canada and Europe. And this is to be able to test how synchronization and how performance happens across the board. Our current capacity that we are limiting our platform to is 500 dedicated chains. This is a virtual limitation, it's not an actual real limitation. We just want to make sure that we don't go over this 500 limit. It is part of our testing scenarios that we're running with this testnet. But you can imagine this scaling up to thousands, if not tens of thousands of individual blockchains that can run in parallel and scale Web3 applications horizontally in many different ways, ways in which we haven't yet even imagined. One of the reasons that we're running hackathons like this is for us to work with you developers to identify and discover new ways in which dedicated block space and dedicated blockchains can be used to build new types of Web3 applications for now and for the future. So with that, if there aren't any other questions regarding the overall architecture, I'm going to move forward and do Saga CLI workshop. We're going to be covering the Saga CLI functionality, set of features that it comes with. And we're going to launch a chainlet. And we're going to exercise some of the other features that Saga CLI comes with, features that have not been presented to you prior to this. Features like escrow account management, decentralized funding for your chainlet or chainlets. And we're going to close things with smart contract deployment and basically using the block explorer and the RPC infrastructure that comes with a new deployed chainlet. Before we start using the CLI, I will start going over how you actually get the CLI. So going back to the documentation page, docs.saga.xyz, the first thing you will need is to actually download. We have a question. Sandeep, how the chain creation is being controlled? So that is the role of the controller. We have a decentralized service, as I mentioned earlier. And the controller basically takes the information from the transactions and events that are happening on the Saga platform chain. In order to create such a transaction, you have to have testnet tokens. In mainnet, you're going to have Saga tokens, mainnet tokens. And you are going to pay an initial fee to launch that, to issue that transaction that will coordinate and launch your own blockchain. So the testnet is actually, so all of the APIs and all of the interfaces and everything is right now publicly available. The only gating mechanism we have today is airdropping testnet tokens. So I hope that answers your question, Kumar. Another question. Who will be responsible for scaling? Can you provide a bit more details on what do you mean by scaling? Scaling of the validators or?
Yeah, Bogdan, so while Sandeep clarifies that question about who's responsible for scaling, he had one additional question on top of that, which is who can create a chain or not. So maybe you can impress upon the permissionlessness of the system.
Who can create a chain? Yeah, so that came also from Sandeep. I mentioned earlier, so in order for you to be able to create a chain, you need Saga testnet tokens. So anyone that has Saga testnet tokens can use the public APIs and the Saga CLI that's available today to launch your own blockchain.
Right, but to clarify, anyone can do it, right? There's no governance. You don't need to ask. Well,
no, as long as you have the tokens in your wallet, you can do it.
Yeah.
So the only gating mechanism is actually airdropping those testnet tokens. I can, while we're on that question, actually, let me show you how you actually get those testnet tokens, because maybe the next question will be, okay, how do I get my tokens? And that's actually pretty easy. There is also a section in the Saga CLI docs, getting access. And here you have a small short page of describing how you actually get those tokens. So there is an onboarding form you have to use. It's hosted in our Saga portal. Once you have the CLI downloaded and you have created your own wallet, you can just share that public key or wallet address, and our team will expedite the airdrop of those tokens to you. Once those tokens are in your wallet, you're free to launch one or more chainlets at your own free will, if it makes sense. Okay, Dragos. Okay, so so Dragos is asking, are there any anti-squatting measures? I can see a situation in which people will mint chains just to speculate them later. No, at this point, we don't have any anti-squatting measures. Chains do require a minimum token deposit to launch one chain, and that is the amount that you have to pay to prepay for 30 epochs. One epoch equals a day, so that means 30 days. So that will mean that with the airdrop that you're getting from our team, you are going to get a chain that will be online for about 30 days. If the chain is being utilized, if we're seeing transactions, if we're seeing activity, if we're seeing Web3 applications and use cases being developed on these chains, then our foundation, our team will be able to fund those chainlets moving forward. If we don't, then the system will automatically turn them off. So there is an automatic cleaning mechanism that happens, that is being employed. So after a while, if the chains are not being used and they're not being funded, they will be shut down. Dragos, I hope that answers your question. Perfect. All right. And then we have a question from YouTube, Teresa Kennedy. Is this similar to parachains? Yes and no. I'm not going to go into the details of the difference between the Polkadot ecosystem and how Cosmos or how Saga works. But let me put it this way. Polkadot uses a relay chain to communicate between parachains. It's a centralized chain. It's a centralized communication channel. Let me put it this way. It's one chain that is being used to communicate across different parachains, one conduit of communication. With Saga, you will be able to do this one-to-one from chainlet to chainlet without actually having to go through a main relay chain or a main message bus, so to speak. And this is actually the power of IBC and the power of Cosmos itself and Cosmos SDK. It allows you to create one-to-one channels, and it could be that those channels are with chains that are deployed on the Saga platform, or they could be also chains that are deployed outside of our ecosystem, and they will function very similar, if not identical. So it is a lot more open than Polkadot. You are not constrained to talk only with parachains, for example. You can create communication channels. You can create IBC channels with any other chain that implements the same protocol. So it's a lot more open. I hope, Teresa, that answers your question. Again, I'm not going into the technical details of how we differ from Polkadot, but in a very short sentence, that's kind of like the big difference. It's a lot more open and a lot more, I would say, collaborative. So,
Bogdan, can you also touch upon the economic aspect of it? It doesn't really apply to Cassio because all the tokens that you're getting are test tokens, and they're being airdropped from the system just for testing purposes. But can you go into the difference, some basic differences between the parachain auction mechanism and how we will price our chainlets at launch? Or do you want me to do that?
yes. Okay. Yeah, we can definitely do that. So in terms of, prior to this, we were talking about the potential technical differences between a parachain and a Saga chainlet or chain. In terms of the economics behind it, in order to get, okay, so another big difference between Polkadot parachains and Saga chainlets. In order to get a Polkadot parachain slot, you have to go through an auction. These auctions require a lot of Polkadot or DOT tokens to be locked in order for the parachain slot to be won in an auction. So it requires a lot of value to be locked. We're talking about sometimes billions of dollars worth of DOT tokens to be locked from the community before this parachain slot can be secured. This process usually takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of months of work engaging with the community and running this process of basically locking in tokens from the community to be able to secure that slot. The difference with Saga Chainlets is that the barrier of entry is extremely low. Anyone can get their own blockchain just by having enough Saga tokens in their wallet to issue the transaction that will provision that chainlet or that chain automatically for them. So that is the only requirement. You have to have enough to pay for running that chain for the minimum amount of time that the platform is currently setting. Today in the Saga Cassiopeia testnet, that minimum duration is a month, is 30 epochs. In production, in mainnet, we might have a different minimum period. It could be a week, it could be 15 days, it could be a same 30 epochs. That's why we are testing that in our current testnet to see what is the best minimum period to go with. But yeah, so as a big difference between Polkadot and Saga chains in terms of the economics of obtaining one, the barrier of entry and the cost is exponentially lower than a Polkadot parachain. So you're going to see a lot more of these going online. There is absolutely no governance process as well. So once you issue the transaction, in less than 2 minutes, you're live. That's basically the difference. And we're going to actually see that later in this workshop when we're going to launch our own chain using the Saga CLI. I hope that answers the question.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions, or should we just jump in and go through a quick demo with the CLI?
Yeah, Bogdan, we're at the 15 minutes left mark, so go for it.
Okay, we're gonna try to cover as much as we can here. So yeah, going back to the docs, we talked about getting access, but before getting access, you actually need to have a wallet address. The way you get the wallet address is by leveraging the CLI. You can download the CLI by going to the Saga documentations, docs.saga.xyz. This is the download Saga CLI option page. You have 3 options here: macOS, Linux, and Windows. Today I'm going to be using macOS. I run actually on an Apple Silicon chip, but depending on your operating system and the actual hardware you're running, you're going to have to choose a different released binary that you can run on your system and on your architecture. So feel free to check this page, download it, and then install it into your system. The way you install it is described here. So you can go step by step and follow the instructions and get your CLI to work. After your CLI is installed, we're going to go ahead and configure the CLI. So again, step-by-step instructions on how to get your CLI to work with the current Saga Cassiopeia testnet release. There are a few configs that you have to set in your CLI. They will also today come by default, but just to make sure that this always works for you and the docs are always up to date, I recommend to read the docs when you're setting it up, and then make sure that the current configs that are in here will also be reflected in your environment. So we can do that. I'm gonna switch to my terminal right now. Let me know if you can actually see my terminal. So first of all, we're gonna do Saga CLI version and check if we're running the same version that is latest in the docs. Right now we're running 0.2.0, so that is what I have here. A quick overview of what functions and features we have in the CLI will be available by just typing Saga CLI. This will give you the list of available commands for account management, chainlet creation, configuration of your CLI, of course, help like any other CLI, keys management, and status. You also have a way to query raw transactions on the Saga platform chain in case you want to debug one or more of your transactions that you've issued to launch or query chainlets. So with that, let's start with the first set of actually, let's launch a chainlet first in the scope of using the time we have available, and because you are going to need to know how to launch your own chain for the hackathon. So let's start with that first, and then we can go into additional features. In order to start or launch your own chain, you're going to be using the chainlet set of features here. So let's go and see what that does. Saga CLI chainlet. What commands do we have available here? So we have APIs, get, launch, list types, and update. We're going to use launch first. So launch allows you to launch your own new chainlet or blockchain. Of course, get, as it says, it will basically allow you to get details of a new chainlet. So let's start with launching a chainlet first, and then we're going to go and exercise all of them. We're going to be using, well, actually, before launching a chainlet, let me explain also what do we have here in terms of parameters that we're passing to this command line. So in order to launch a new chain, you need to also know what stack version and what stack name or type of stack you're going to be using for your blockchain. Saga is we're building Saga platform as an extendable platform that in the future, the community can use to deploy different versions of EVM environments or potentially Solana VMs or Move VMs and so on. So right now we're supporting EVM. Tomorrow we're going to probably start supporting other type of execution environments and data availability layers. And later on, most likely, we have in the works supporting layer 2s and potentially ZK and whatnot. So these are all going to be different stacks that you can run on top of the Saga platform. In order to query those stacks, we have a command for that. It's called list types, Saga CLI list types, and it will show you Saga CLI chainlet list types. And it will show you basically what types we have currently available for you to deploy. Right now we have only one. It's the Saga EVM chainlet stack. Like I said, in the future, we're going to have more than one here and also coming with different versions. You can imagine that Saga EVM eventually might have additional feature upgrades, security patches. Those will come with version upgrades of the same type of stack. It will also show you some additional information here. Who created this stack? This is an address owned by the Saga team. In the future, this could also be, let's say, another creator, maybe another blue chip team out there that is building chainlet stacks. And you can also see the setup cost and epoch cost for each one of these stacks. So today we have 10 testnet sagas per day as an epoch cost for the stack, and a setup cost, which is a one-time payment for storage, which is set up right now at 10 testnet sagas. Again, this is not something that you have to really be concerned with right now for the hackathon, but is additional information for you to understand how part of the economic side of the Saga platform looks like. So with that in mind, we know what the stack name is. We know what the version number is. Let's go ahead and launch a new chainlet. So we're going to be using Saga Chainlet launch. Saga EVM is the stack name. 1.0 is the version name. We're going to be using a new name here. We're going to call this Hackathon. And then we are going to pass a few flags here. So Genesis account is a way for us to pass one or more addresses, public keys, in which we're going to automatically airdrop the base fee token for this new blockchain. As you already know, you're familiar with, every blockchain has some way to issue transactions, and most of them will ask for a transaction fee paid in some base fee token. So when you launch a new chain, this is again a completely new blockchain, you're going to have to also define what is the actual denom or denominator for name for that base fee token. So let's say, for example, on Ethereum is ETH, on Bitcoin is BTC. On your blockchain, your personal blockchain, you choose the name of that. So in this case, today, we're going to be calling it hack. And that will be the name of our token. And we're going to also airdrop. We're going to mint. We're going to create an initial total available supply for this token and drop it into a MetaMask address that you control. It could be one or many. So you can imagine doing a Genesis event for a public chain, maybe after an ICO potentially, you will have a set of addresses that is going to actually receive the initial allocation of tokens. Some might be a multi-sig for a foundation. Some might be, let's say, a series of investors that have a vesting schedule, and some might be actually even airdrops to the community. So this is a feature for you to automatically do that when the chainlet comes online and when the Genesis event happens. So let's pick up one of those addresses. I'm going to use one account that I have here ready for this and paste it right in. And I'm going to say I'm issuing 1 million tokens. This will be the initial supply for my hack token. And --from is actually instructing my CLI to use my Reactor wallet. I have many different wallets that I have created with my CLI. One of them is called Reactor. I'm going to use Reactor for this demo. Well, actually, let me just use another one. I'm going to use Bogdan demo for this. All right. So it's asking me for my wallet password, and this is a transaction that it will be broadcasting to the Saga testnet. What do I see here? Well, this is my creator address. This are the maintainers. Maintainers is a list of addresses that is used as an access control list, or ACL, to support and allow further updates to this already existing chain in the future if we have, for example, an update to the chainlet stack. It is also in some cases used to gate smart contract deployments on this chain. There is a feature that can be enabled when you launch your chain to allow or enable access control for the deployment of smart contracts, so that if you choose, only a specific set of addresses will be allowed to deploy smart contracts and not the entire community. So this is again optional, but for some developers out there, this is something that has been a needed feature to gate who is actually allowed to deploy smart contracts on that specific blockchain. I'm going to, okay, so and a few other things here. The chain ID that this blockchain will have, chainlet name that we already chose to be Hackathon, the actual base fee token denom called hack, and a few other parameters. I'm not going to go over everything right now. Let's just confirm this transaction. Okay, let me see. What we have a, let me see, Saga Chainlet status. What is the problem here? It's telling me that my account is not, so I might not actually have tokens in that account. So let's do Reactor instead. All right. So yeah, so it looks like the initial account that I was trying to use didn't have any tokens in it, so that failed. And I switched to my other account. So if I do Saga CLI keys, you can see that I'm using, I currently have configured about 6 or 7 accounts in here. I initially tried to use Bogdan demo, but that failed because I probably don't have any amount of tokens listed in that anymore. So I switched to Reactor instead. This is something that has been prepared for our hackathon. So I switched to that and it worked. We have a confirmation here for the transaction being broadcasted to the Saga platform chain. So let's go ahead and list Saga CLI chainlet and list what chainlets we have available. So it looks like we don't have any chainlets on this account. Let's say what account we're using. So Saga CLI config, to see what I have in my config here. So it looks like I have this set up to Bogdan demo. I have to switch it to Reactor. So the way I do that is Saga CLI config from, and then switch to Reactor. I can also use that by using --from flag, but I'm not gonna want to pass that flag with every single command I do. So I actually have the option to change it directly in the main Saga CLI config. It looks like it got changed to reactor. So now if I do Saga CLI chainlet list again, I will be getting the list of chainlets that I have created with this account. So you can see a few different chainlets created here. Some are from the past. There is one that we just created now called Hackathon right here. So going back to the Saga CLI set of features, Saga CLI chainlet features. What can we do with this? Well, the next set of commands that we can use on already existing launch chain is APIs or get or update. We used launch and list. Let's do get first. So let's do chainlet get and pass the chain ID that we picked up earlier. And let's see what that returns. So what do we have here? Chainlet ID, name. Again, it will show you what stack and version has been used for this. Launcher, maintainers, the currency symbol, and if its status is online or offline. Right now it's being shown as online. So in order to leverage this blockchain, now we need APIs. We need RPC endpoints, and we need a blockchain explorer to actually see transaction activity, assets, and so on. So let's do that. Saga CLI, chainlet, APIs, pass the actual chain ID. Let me copy that again. And we're going to get the connection information. So as you can see here, we have 3 endpoints that we're serving for each new blockchain that is deployed on Saga. You have a JSON RPC for your, again, blockchain wallet like MetaMask, Web3 application, and so on. This is what you're mostly going to be using to build your own applications during this hackathon and after as well. We also offer WebSockets for that if you want to have more interactive web UIs, and also the Block Explorer. Statuses look like all of them are available, so we can actually just go to the Block Explorer now and check and see how it looks like. So yeah, it looks like the blockchain is already up and running, is producing blocks. We're already at height 1010 and moving. So we're live. We're live with a new dedicated blockchain. I see that there's a few questions here. I'm going to try to see. Oh, okay. So Dragosh is asking, Dina must be 3 letters, maybe hack, HCK. It doesn't have to be only 3 letters. It could actually be also 4, 5. It could be up to 6. Yes. It could be lowercase, and it could also be uppercase. I would say uppercase is something that we do not want to enforce in the CLI. So right now we support all lowercase, but you can pass more than 3 letters. They have to be alphanumeric. So I would say, yes, 3 letters. In my test didn't work with uppercase. Correct. So we don't support uppercase, but you can use uppercase in your MetaMask wallet. In the CLI, it has to be all lowercase. And again, thanks for testing that, by the way. Will the initial supply be equally divided among the Genesis accounts if there are more than 1 Genesis account? If not, what happens in that case? Great question, Hunt. So going back to the CLI, we ran this command. Let me just bring it back up again. Okay, so you have -- Genesis account. You can pass this flag many times, and each time you can actually add another address. The total available supply is going to be the sum of all of these flags that and the values that you're passing in the CLI. So let's say, for example, I would pass another Genesis account in this launch command with another 1 million tokens that are going to be airdropped in a different wallet. Then you're going to have 2 million overall total available supply. Does that make sense? That answers your question? Correct. Yeah, you specify allocation per account. Thank you, Orion. Perfect. I'm happy that some of these answers are actually being answered by the community. So thank you for that. I'm happy that you're collaborating. Pardon my voice. I've been struggling with a cold. Almost done. Okay, so we're a bit over time here. Do we have more time, or should we just cut it short at this point because we went a bit over the allocated time here? How are we with time?
So
If you've got-
Bogdan,
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
oh, sorry. No, Brian and I were actually just texting. We're good, Bogdan. Definitely keep going. I think people are getting a lot of value out of this, and I appreciate it, Brian.
Perfect. Okay. No, great. I mean, I love all the questions you guys have, and keep it coming. If we have more time, then we're gonna go a bit more in depth. So now that we have a blockchain up and running, and we also are able to use the CLI to actually check the details of our blockchain, like APIs, or again, the stack version or the stack name that we're using, and so on. Another thing that I wanted to go over with, and it's part more of the how do you keep this this blockchain alive and keep it running long term, and that's another set of features that we are currently testing for the first time in our testnet, but in the future is going to be part of our mainnet release and a core feature of the Saga platform, and that's a decentralized way to fund your blockchain, so that your own blockchain can be funded by the community or by any other entity outside of the original entity that created or issued the command to launch this new blockchain and make it come into existence. So going back to Saga CLI, looking over the available commands, we also have account type commands. So let's go and see what those do. Saga CLI account provides a way to query your account balance, but it also provides a way to manage the escrow account that is attached to each chainlet. Let me explain what that is. Your balance is the amount of tokens you have in your own wallet. It's your own wallet under your own control, and we do not have access to your account. We will never have access to your account. Your keys are yours. You know, as they say, your keys, your crypto. So that will always stay the same. That's at the core of how we build our platform as well. We will never break those promises or those rules. But at the same time, we have to have a way to charge, to be able to withdraw a specific amount of Saga tokens per epoch in order to fund the liveliness of your blockchain. So how does that work? We've implemented with this release different type of account, which is called an escrow account. That is a new account that is attached to every chainlet or blockchain that runs on top of the Saga platform. So how does that look like? Let's see how does that look like for our new chain that we just launched. In order to see that, we have a command here called get escrow. So let's run that and see what we get. Saga CLI. Let's do chainlet list again, so that I can get my chain ID that I want to interrogate. So it will be Hackathon. Then I'm going to use the Saga CLI account get escrow, pass the chain ID, and this is what I'm getting. So what do I see here? My chain ID, the total balance that I have right now in my escrow account, the funder, so who was the public address or wallet, entity or individual that deposited this amount, and the total and the funder deposit. So how much this funder has deposited and has available in the escrow account today. This will be the account from which every epoch, the Saga platform will withdraw the epoch fee. Remember earlier we said that every single chainlet stack and version has a specific set fee per epoch. Saga CLI, chainlet, list types. And in this case, Saga EVM comes with 10 T-Sagas per day epoch cost. That means that every day, 10 T-Sagas will be withdrawn from this escrow account. But what happens if this funder goes missing or decides not to be engaged with the project anymore? But the community itself wants the project to keep going. They want the chain to continue to be alive. Or maybe control over this project or this decentralized chain gets to be delegated to a DAO or a different entity. Then that entity has to take control and also is now responsible for the funding of this, for the liveliness of this chain. So the way that works is this escrow account acts like a pool that can be contributed to from anyone in the network. It can be associated with a protocol or not. It could be an investor or not. It could be a DAO or not. It could be anyone in the community as well that wants to keep this project alive. So the way to do that is with any wallet, you can actually deposit additional funds and keep this blockchain alive. So let's just do that. Let's do that from a different account. So earlier I said I have many accounts, 6 or 7 accounts that are created in my local environment, Saga CLI, account, keys, list. So I have a few here. Currently I'm using Reactor, but I'm gonna switch to using another one. Let's use Bogdan local and see if I have a balance there. So Saga CLI account, let's use balance because we haven't used it before. And then I'm gonna actually interrogate my balance from Bogdan local. Sorry, from. And yeah, I do have a balance here, a bunch of T-Saga tokens. Ignore that. That means I can actually use this account to add additional funds and fund this hackathon chain with additional funds. So let's try to do that. So let's go back again and see what the balance currently is for this hackathon chainlet escrow account. So right now we have 280 T-Sagas, 1 funder account, total balance 280. So let's add more funds. So let's do Saga CLI account. Again, this is the set of commands available for the account. And the command will be deposit escrow. I will have to pass a chain ID. Let me just get that chain ID from above. So hackathon. And I will have to pass an amount. So I'm going to deposit an additional 100 T-Sagas. And I'm going to use my other wallet from Bogdan local. Again, this can be anyone in the network. I'm doing it from the same environment and from the same CLI, but from 2 different wallets. But this could be anyone running and having access to Saga CLI and some Saga tokens. So let's do that. Issue a transaction. I do get a confirmation here saying you are about to deposit 100 T-Sagas into the chain ID escrow account hackathon. Do you want to confirm? I would say yes. And that will issue a transaction, and it will also return back the status of the current status of the escrow account. So what do we see now? Now we see an increased total balance of 380 T-Sagas, and we see 2 funder accounts. So you can have and by the way, this is fully transparent, so anyone can see this. So this is transparent, is visible for the entire community. You can see who is funding any blockchain that is being deployed and running on the Saga platform, and you can see the amount. Now, if I want to withdraw my original deposit, let's say the 280 that I initially used to launch this this chainlet, I don't want to be involved anymore with the project, so I'm going to basically just pull the plug, or I think I'm going to be pulling the plug, and withdraw my initial deposit. I can do that. The chain, though, will not go offline at this point because it is already funded by additional funders in the community. Or maybe, again, if these funds run out and I don't actually top up anymore, and I relinquish control or I delegate funding to a DAO or some other entity, this is the way you do it. You add an additional funder or more, and over time, the responsibility for supporting this project can be transitioned over to more of a decentralized set of entities or different third parties and whatnot. So in this way, the community can actually take over in case the original creator is no longer active. Let's see, do we have any questions on this one, chat? Okay, cool. So so that kind of concludes. Well, actually, one more thing. Another thing I wanted to show you is also in the account section. There are a few additional commands here that you can play with. For example, we did do balance deposit and get escrow. Withdraw escrow is, as I said, a way to take out your initial contribution. We can even do that right now if we want to be super cheap about it. So let's just do that. That will take out my contribution to the Hackathon chainlet, and we'll only leave one funder in place. So the second funder that I just added that supports an additional basically supporter for this project is the only funder that currently supports this chainlet. As you can see, it's still there. So the chainlet is still active and still running, and it will continue to run for an additional 10 days here based on the current fee if no one else deposits additional tokens. And the last thing I wanted to show you is with the account set of commands, you also get to see the billing history. So this will show you, for example, a history of transactions that have been done automatically by the Saga platform to withdraw on each epoch the epoch fee to maintain the infrastructure for your blockchain. For example, for this one chainlet, you're not going to see more than one billing because there's only one epoch that has been built. But you can see here, basically, you can imagine how this will look like in the future, let's say tomorrow and the day after and the day after. With each epoch, you're going to get a new line that is going to basically show a new transaction of 10 T sagas per day. I think I can actually show you an example of an older chainlet that has that. So let's do Saga CLI chainlet list and pick up another chainlet that I have here running for a lot longer time. Let's do DeFi Kingdoms and then get the billing history for DeFi Kingdoms and see how that looks like. There you go. So DeFi Kingdoms has been spun up on epoch 16. So we're looking at 11 days ago. And as you can see, every single epoch, you get another line item in your billing history where you see basically a 10 T saga or 10 saga in the future on mainnet being withdrawn from your escrow account. That's kind of how it looks like. And that kind of concludes the current set of features for account management that we have in our Saga CLI available today.
We had a question about cross-chain communication.
Yes, let's go back to that. Okay, cross-chain communication under Saga ecosystem, is it possible? Yes, so Correct. So this is going to be a core feature of the Saga ecosystem. Cross-chain communication is first and foremost going to be implemented using IBC, inter-blockchain communication. It will allow cross-chain communication and composability between Saga chains and with chains outside of the Saga ecosystem. Oh, Dragos actually already answered that. Thank you, Dragos. Correct. So it's done via IBC. We are not just looking to support IBC. In the future, we're going to support a few other technologies that allow cross-chain communication. IBC is going to be the bedrock, is going to be implemented at the protocol level. But at the same time, we are planning to support things like things that are a bit less intrusive, that are added on top. I would say at one layer on top, but it's called layer 0. And that is another type of technology that we can use to communicate between different blockchains, EVM or otherwise. So we are planning to support integration with that as well in the near future once mainnet is out. Another question, can we use hard hat tooling to verify contracts on chainlets? Also, is there any UI for querying, verifying smart contracts similar to Etherscan? So for the first question, can we verify contracts on the chainlet using hard hat? Yes. Is there any UI for querying, verifying smart contracts similar to Etherscan? Yes and no. Yes, you can actually see the deployment, so verify the deployment of a smart contract. And we can actually just, you know what, let's just do that right now so that we can see how that looks like. We have one innovator called Third Web that allows via a simple UI to deploy a smart contract on your chain. So it's actually a very cool technology, a very cool application. Where is my Explorer SDK dashboards? Why can't I just go get started? Okay. So this allows you to deploy smart contracts very easily using a UI interface without actually having to use hard hat. You can use hard hat as well. Hard hat is another way, or truffle, or even you can use Remix. There are many other EVM tools that will allow you to deploy Solidity or Viper smart contracts on top of Saga chains. But this is one example that is just point and click, and you can deploy a lot of different types of smart contracts. I believe this has been demoed before, but it's something that we can use to quickly showcase the how a smart contract can get deployed on a Saga chain, and how can you see that in the Saga Chainlet Explorer. So, for example, like an NFT drop is something that we can do. But in order to do that, we have to actually also set up a network here. So let's add a custom network quickly in order to do that test. So Saga CLI Chainlet APIs. Let's pass the Chainlet, the hackathon. Let's use the one that we just created. We need to pass the Chainlet RPC information so that we can actually connect to it. So let's call it hackathon. And then this will be the RPC endpoint that we just created, your personal one. And then the chain ID will be the middle number. The currency will be hack and add. So there you go, you have your own network there. So let's just go ahead and deploy this guy. This will be, let's call it NFT drop example. Let's just call it NFT for now. We don't need a description, but we can add one. Network to be deployed hackathon, and let's deploy it now. So this will basically prompt me with signing 4 transactions, looks like. What does this usually do in the backend is it deploys a factory contract, and then after that, it actually instructs the factory contract to deploy another contract on top of the chainlet that is pointed on. As you can see here, we have a transaction in MetaMask. The currency is hack. We just mentioned that earlier. We can confirm it. Sometimes this, sometimes this UI has some issues with different type of smart contracts, but ignore that for a second. It does pick it up on the backend eventually. Let's see how long it takes to do that. All right, so we can see this transaction on the Explorer. So what do we have here? So we have a smart contract creation here. So Dragoș, I think you asked the question of, can you see smart contracts in the UI? I'm going to continue confirming this because it asked me for additional transactions. So I will let it go. You can kind of see the live transactions happening in the Explorer here. This is a contract call that will create that NFT drop smart contract application on your chainlet. But anyway, so let's look at the contract creation in the Explorer and see how that looks like. So you can see the transaction details here. You can see the actual raw input, the hex default. You can use also UTF-8, but hex default for the transaction body that was sent to actually deploy the smart contract. And you can see the list of internal transactions that have been issued as well to launch this smart contract. What you don't yet see in this blockchain Explorer is the actual contract validation. So you might have seen on Etherscan a way to actually validate that the code that you're deploying is and that exists, for example, deployed in Hex on chain, matches a version of the smart contract that is stored on IPFS, for example, so that you can see the human readable code and make sure that the human readable code was actually the thing that was deployed on the smart contract. So that's basically a smart contract verifier. That's something that we have not shipped with the current Cassiopeia testnet, but it will be something that we're going to have in the later testnet releases. And also, of course, is going to be available in mainnet. We are also working with third-party Explorer providers. So we're not going to be the only Explorer option out there. We are coming out of the box with the Saga Explorer, but you're going to have access to a few other flavors of blockchain explorers that you can use for your own blockchain. So this is not going to be the only version available. Hopefully that answers the question. Okay.
There's a question about gasless transaction support. Did you cover that one already?
No, I have not. That's a great question. So gasless transactions in Cassiopeia are not supported. So all of the transactions that we currently have right now are going to ask for a small gas fee, which at this point doesn't cost anything. In the future, we are going to support also gasless transactions. So not having to actually pass any gas to support a smart contract execution or a transaction on chain. Today, we do have, again, more of a placeholder, I would say, a transaction fee in the base fee token that is defined when you create your own blockchain. But those are, of course, costless. They don't actually have an actual real world cost. Technically, in the future, we're going to actually support also costless. So that will come with, you can think about it, most likely that's where the question is coming from as well. UI or UX enhancements of not having to onboard to a specific token or have that specific token in your wallet before you can interact with that blockchain. So this works great for gaming applications or onboarding hundreds and thousands and millions of users to your application without having to add drop tokens to allow them to interact with your chain. So that is coming in the next iteration. Question.
Bogdan, did you already answer the question about can we access the underlying Cosmos SDK chain? If devs want to add governance or other modules, what are the steps?
Sorry. No, so we are not. So the one thing that we actually do not allow right now directly is to create your own additional modules in the chainlets that you spin up. Why? Because we're doing this in automatic fashion. So the deployment of new chains happens automatically. There is no governance in front of it. In Cosmos, governance is being used to protect the community from modules or upgrades or additions that could potentially be beneficial or harmful for the community. On the Saga platform, deployment does happen without governance, and because of that, we are restricting what can be changed in the underlying dedicated blockchain that you spin up. So the way you actually come up with a new type of, let's say, blockchain that has additional features or modules is by creating a new chainlet stack. So remember earlier we said that we have, we already support this. So the Saga CLI has chainlet list types. In order to have your custom modules that you want to leverage in your dedicated blockchain, you will have to create a new chainlet stack that comes with those modules. And later on, when you iterate over those modules and potentially upgrade them, create more functionality, create more features and whatnot, you will bump up that version. That will be done through a governance process. So adding a new chainlet stack in the Saga platform will be most likely in the future done via some sort of decentralized governance process to allow new chainlet stack creators to add new chainlet stacks to the platform. So I hope that answers your question. So that's the way you can have your own custom modules. And yes, you could potentially add modules that leverage the underlying Cosmos SDK. That will be the way to do it. But adding it to the Saga platform will require adding it as a new chainlet stack rather than changing things from under the hood, because we want to make sure that our community is also safe and protected. And if there is no governance process for adding those additional features, you can imagine this will be a very simple way to create attack vectors for chainlets that or blockchains that are already running, and that could potentially support a lot of users. Hopefully that answers your question. Let me go back. I think Dragosh had another question. Let me see. Where did I see that? Oh yeah. Question was if you can query verified smart contracts methods directly from the UI like Etherscan. No, not right now with block scope type of. This is based on block scope. So using block scope, you don't necessarily have that functionality to use the UI to interact with functions that are deployed with your smart contract. But later on, I would say when we start supporting more flavors of block explorers, you will have that functionality as well. I know exactly what you're referring to. It's a UI feature in Etherscan that allows you to go to a smart contract and go to the contract itself and then exercise methods directly from the UI. Today, you're going to be able to do that via tools like Hardhat or even Remix. So that will still work. You are not going to be able to do that from the Explorer itself. So that's something that might come later on with other flavors of Explorers that we're going to make available in the platform. Cool. Any other questions? Let me see. So Ethan Hunt asked, does the Saga Chainlet allow us to create meta transaction? Gaseous transactions. Yes, so we covered that. So right now, no, but in the future, yes, that will be part of mainnet for sure. Okay, Orion, I think I already answered that question regarding accessing underlying Cosmos SDK chain and modules. That's it. I think I don't see any other questions.
Bogdan, you already covered the one from Dragosh about can you query verified smart contract directly from the UI? Yep.
Yeah, we did that. We just covered that. Yeah. I think that is it. So I think for today, this is enough. It covers the main functionality of how to use the Saga CLI to spin up your own blockchain, how to leverage the Block Explorer, how to access your RPC endpoints and infrastructure to configure your Web3 applications and your MetaMask wallet. I guess we also did a smart contract deployment via Third Web that we watched in the Saga Explorer happen. That concludes the demo for today, and I hope you all enjoyed the workshop. Thanks again for all the questions that we received today. There were plenty of questions. I'm really happy that that everyone jumped in and engaged today. Great questions across the board. And I'm looking forward to see what applications and use cases are you all going to move forward and build on top of Saga Chainlets. Some next steps, I would say after this, if you don't yet have access to testnet tokens, make sure that you follow the instructions in the documentation at docs.saga.xyz to get access and get your airdrop of testnet tokens and start deploying chainlets and happy hacking. I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone builds. So with that, thank you. And I'm going to give it back to Rex.
So I have created a resource, a set of links for people, and I shared it in the chat, and I could share it again, but it includes the contact information for myself and James. James is our product manager, and go ahead and email him if you have any technical questions or questions about the platform and for your Cassiopeia related needs. We also have opened a Telegram channel for matchmaking. So join that open Telegram channel, and we already have over 17 plus different teams have joined that. So if you want help meeting a team, join that Telegram channel. Be sure to fill in that Cassiopeia form to gain access. I included that link. There's a link to developer documentation. And join us on Friday for a matchmaking session. And that's going to be subscribe to that Google Calendar link that I put there. You might have to copy and paste the whole URL. It's kind of broken in the middle. And that will get automatically added to your schedule on Friday. And then we'll facilitate more in-person matchmaking there. So thank you.
Just to add one more detail to that. So during that matchmaking session on Friday, that's actually an innovator closed call. So you're not only going to be speaking with your fellow hackathon participants, but you will be meeting our ecosystem. So these are innovators. They're currently officially 169 in the ecosystem, but we're soon going to introduce a new cohort. So yeah, it'll be a brand new group of people that you'll get the chance to potentially team up with.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. Bogdan, thank you for taking the time to walk your developers through the Cassiopeia deep dive. It was definitely very informative. I think our hackers got a lot of value out of it. Thank you, Rebecca and Rex and James, for also being here and saying a few words. We just echo, their comments about the matchmaking session, as well as the additional programming we will have for developers throughout this entire hackathon as well. Please be sure to check out the full workshop schedule on DoraHacks.io. And if you have any questions for myself or the Saga team, you can please contact them on socials, in their Telegram channel, Discord, and you can do the same with DoraHacks on our Discord and our Telegram. Or you can reach out to me directly at Brian Dora on Telegram, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And with that being said, I'd just like to give one final thanks for everyone who spoke at this workshop, attended, was in the audience. I think it was very informative and should really help guide the developers throughout the rest of the hackathon. So thank you all a lot. And that concludes the workshop.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thanks, everyone.